I am currently, I am, I'll start over again. Welcome everyone. My name is Michelle Hildreth and I am the current chair of the Women in Libraries Roundtable of the North Carolina Library Association. You are all here today to learn about how to get involved with NCLA. And this session is co-sponsored with LAMS, which is the Leadership and Management section, and NMRT, which is the New Members Roundtable. And so we are happy to have you all here and hope you'll find out a lot about the different ways you can be involved and the different levels of being involved. So I'm going to hand it over to Brandy Hamilton. She is the chair of the Leadership Administration and Management section, and she'll tell you a little bit more about what NCLA is and what there is to offer.
All right, thank you so much, Michelle, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm so excited to see so many people come in to find out more about NCLA. My name, again, is Brandy Hamilton, and I'm currently the Leadership Administration and Management section chair, and we're happy to partner with Willer and New Members Roundtable. Our goal today is to share some experiences and talk about ways that you can get involved in NCLA. I know that there is some mystery to how to, break through some barriers. There's always something new to learn, and we're really proud to have this endeavor. So thank you, Michelle, for setting this up or coming up with this idea. So I'm going to share a little bit of information about NCLA and how NCLA could help you reach your personal goals. So first of all, our mission in NCLA is pretty simple. It's pretty straightforward. We want to inform our members, we want to connect our members, and we want to support our members. And that's library staff at any level in the organization. I joined when I was fresh out of library school, and that's been 21 years ago, and I have never turned around. I haven't turned back since. So NCLA is an affiliate of the American Library Association and the Southeastern Library Association. It's our only statewide organization that is concerned with the total library community. So there are other associations that may have more niche interests, but we are interested in the total library community of North Carolina. So our purpose is to promote libraries, library and information services, librarianship, intellectual freedom, and literacy. So a few of our goals for the association: we want to provide forums for discussion on library related issues. We want to promote research and publication and presentations of library information, science, and really provide opportunities for personal growth. And I think you're going to find a little bit about that later from our panelists. And we want to support those informal and formal networks of libraries and librarians. So another important goal is to help resolve any kind of special concerns of minorities or women in the profession, and some strategies that the association employs to do that. Again, we're offering different community continuing education offerings for our members, through professional workshops, programs, conferences. We try to make our members aware of any legislation that affects libraries, whether it's personnel or involvement on the federal and state levels. We do advocacy. We have a Publishing North Carolina Libraries Online, which is an award-winning journal. We like to award scholarships to library students. So if you're a student in the room, we'll talk a little bit we can talk about that. We recognize outstanding contributors in the profession through awards. And the Leadership Institute, if you haven't heard of that, that is a big, one of our bigger efforts where people can go and they become part of a cohort. That just happened this past September. And it's a really great program for future leaders. So we try to do leadership development. And of course, we have sections and committees, and I would like to talk a little bit about the differences between sections and committees sometime during this session. Please check out some of our fabulous workshops and networking events. Now that we're, getting back to meeting together again, we hope to see some more of those networking events so you can connect with members. And if you're new to North Carolina and you haven't had a chance to get involved in NCLA, check out our website. And I think I have that here on the screen, and you can see all the good things that we're doing. And, if you're looking for leadership opportunities, I'm happy to talk to you guys about that afterwards. And I think that's a quick rendition of NCLA. Does anybody have anything to add in the group? Mark or Michelle or Rachel, does that sound good?
Sounds great.
Okay.
I think you covered it. Thank you.
So, all right.
So we're going to turn it over now to Kate Budries. She is the co-chair for Women in Libraries, and she is going to be our moderator.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for being here with us today. We're going to start off real short and sweet with introductions. So I'd love for our panelists to introduce themselves. And for any of you that are affiliated with sections or committees, please also talk a little bit about your sections and committees. And we will take it away with Wanda, and then y'all just kind of jump in as we go.
Took me a minute to unmute myself. I am Wanda K. Brown. I'm Director of Library Services at Winston-Salem State University. And I have been involved with the NCLA for probably close to 40 years. I've done some of any number of things, from committee chairs to roundtable chairs to treasurer and president.
Okay, Melody, if you want to take us away, and then we'll do Michelle and Brandy.
Yeah, sure. Hi, my name is Melody Rood. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the Student Success and Open Education Librarian at UNCG. And I am currently the Vice Chair-Elect for the New Members Roundtable. Previously, before that, I was the New Professionals Liaison on the New Members Roundtable.
Michelle?
All right. So I introduced myself earlier, but not only am I the Women in Libraries Roundtable Chair, I am the manager of the Green Road Community Library, which is part of Wake County Public Libraries. And I also attended the Leadership Institute in 2014. So that was one of the things I did to kind of make this jump from just being a person who comes to NCLA events to being more involved in that. And I'll talk more about that later. Oh, and also the Women in Libraries Roundtable, I wanted to say that what we focus on doing is being a forum for discussion of concerns of women in librarianship and how they affect the profession as a whole. We regularly provide trainings and workshops in a wide variety of topics, and we usually try to sponsor an author or artist visit at the annual conference, the biennial conference. So that is coming up next year. And we are always looking for new members if you're interested in joining our section or finding a way to be more involved.
Awesome. All right, so gosh, where do I start? 21 years, they got me early. I came into Wake County where I currently work, and I'm still here in Wake County as a regional library manager. And I can honestly say that NCLA has really changed my life and my professional life as well. So when I first started with NCLA, I started, I think, on a membership committee, and then I helped with, registration at the conference. And I've done public policy, I've done continuing education. So I've been on committees, which are, they're different than roundtables and sections. Roundtables and sections are more for special interests that, if you're youth services or you're interested, interested in a specific area of librarianship, whereas the committees are more organizational and help the organization push the organization association forward on a larger scale. So I've been involved in both of those things. I can say that there's things that I've been able to do through NCLA that have developed my professional skills, and I would not have had the opportunities to develop some of those skills without NCLA. So I'm a lifer. I'm halfway there, Wanda. So, but I'm just glad to be here today.
All right, and then last but most certainly not least, Mark.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mark Sanders. I'm an assistant director at East Carolina University, and I've been involved with NCLA since 2005. I've chaired the leadership and administration and management section and the reference and adult services section. And I'm currently the chair of the Constitution, Codes, and Handbook Committee, which is a committee of one. And that committee serves as a sort of a liaison between sections and the executive board to work primarily to help them revise their bylaws, but also serve as a resource to answer questions about procedures or elections. And then the other big thing the committee does is maintain the handbook, the NCLA Executive Board Handbook, which I'll talk a little bit about later.
All right, thank you all so much. We're so happy to have you. And we're gonna jump into question 2. How did your relationship with NCLA start, and how did it evolve to your role with NCLA now?
I guess I'll go first. So I'm going to say back in the latter part of the 80s, my then supervisor, whose name was Ann Nicholson, took me to my first NCLA, I think it was college and university section meeting. And she introduced me, and we both talked about my getting active in there. And I will always say to people that when I went that particular day, I didn't see anybody who looked like me. And so I was determined that I was going to be a part of this association and was going to bring color to the table. So I started, I'm going to say, most heavily in the college and university section. But from that experience around that table, then I just got, immersed, I think, in service and in professional development, in the values that you gain from networking and the people you meet, the doors that it opens for you. It's like a wonderful door to go through to advance your career, to advance your current day work. Whatever projects you're working on currently, you always can run into somebody who's already done that or already experienced that and can help navigate that role for you. So I guess the more, I think it's kind of addictive. So the more you get involved, the more you want to do, and the more you want to do, the harder it is to step away from it. You just always want to be a part of it. So that's kind of my first introduction. And my first real major role, I'll say, was when Michael O'Croy, who was former treasurer of NCLA, took a job out of the state, and they needed somebody to fill in as treasurer. And so they asked me about it. And from there, that propelled me to a treasurership for the Black Caucus. And so it just, though, one door opens another door, and soon your room is full with a lot of people that you would never have met had you not been active early on or at some, beginning part of your career.
Oh, I can jump in. So when I moved to North Carolina from South Carolina, because I had was a recent graduate from there, I started working here in Wake County, and I believe the conference was coming up, and at that time I went to the conference and I didn't know a soul. It was very, I'm looking back on time, and it was kind of scary and intimidating, and I'm walking around and I'm seeing all these important people, the president and all these I had no idea who a lot of people were at that time. And I feel like at the conferences when I, was just wandering around talking and meeting people, and it was very exciting being brand new to the profession and being at the conference. And Then I attended the Leadership Institute in 2002. So 20 years ago. And I just presented at the Leadership Institute in September. Wanda was there. I'm sure there's other people in the room I'm missing, but that was just a neat thing that I came full circle from attending the Leadership Institute to presenting at the Leadership Institute. And that was one of my favorite moments. But the Leadership Institute is just an excellent way I'd say it's a gateway to get into NCLA, because you meet a lot of people that are active and if you're interested in leadership, or whether or not you want to be a manager or just want to hone your leadership skills. After that is when I really noticed that I took off, because I had met a lot of people. And then I think I became a committee chair membership. So I took membership, under, I think Robert Bergen was the president at that time. And my goal was to increase membership. And so I went around and spoke to colleges. I did a lot of grassroots things and did that for a number of years. And then once I was firmly planted in the association, I was like, well, what else can I do? Because I mean, you want to try new things after you want to get a little burnout with something, you want to try something different. And then I did a public policy, which is now that we changed the name to, I think it's library advocacy. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but it used to be public policy. I actually was the one that changed the name. But anyway, that was a very interesting position. I want to say 4 or 5 years. It was very challenging. It was almost like a part-time job. So you can being involved can be as great or as minimal as you want it to be. It doesn't have to be what my experience was, but taking people to Washington, large groups, organizing the groups, and actually going to legislators' offices to ask for, them to support IMLS, different and school libraries. And that was probably one of the most unique experiences I've had in my life doing that. It was super challenging. I'd never organized a group of like 50 people to get on a bus, and it was stressful, but I learned so much. And then from there, of course, I moved on to the leadership section, which I'm currently at, and we do a lot of work on one of our biggest things recently is like presenting and offering workshops for people to grow in their presentation skills. And then right now our bread and butter, so to speak, is we have a newsletter that we try to make it very robust with a lot of resources for people that are leaders. So anyway, that's how I started, and that's just a quick run through of where I'm at now. So.
I guess I can go next. So my relationship with NCLA started from Brandy Hamilton saying, you need to join NCLA. It was probably around 2006 or so. And I had just started working in Wake County Public Libraries, and she was very actively promoting it to all the different people who, worked in Wake County. I think at that point, though, I just joined and I paid the fees. I didn't necessarily know what to do beyond that. And that's partly why I wanted to do this webinar today, because I think I stayed in that role for at least almost 8 to 10 years of just like, I don't know what to do besides like pay attention to the emails that come out, see what webinars there are to offer, maybe I did go to some like networking events, and whenever Wake County would send people to NCLA, I would go to NCLA, and I loved it. I love going to conferences and meeting people who are doing different things in libraries across the state. I do appreciate that with something like NCLA or ALA, you're also working with librarians who are in different roles than you are. So not just public libraries or not just university libraries, you're getting kind of that perspective of all the different types of libraries, and you're seeing our similarities, and a lot of the challenges are still the same, but also some of our differences, and it kind of helps you broaden that. There was a point where I was like, I really want to do more. I don't know how to do more. Like, how do you get on a section executive board, or how do you join a committee? And at the time, my direct supervisor was Dale Cousins, who was actually president-elect for NCLA. And I remember asking her, and I'd say, I really want to be more involved, but I just don't know where to start. And she actually pointed me to a section that needed members, which was Willer. She said, you know, I think they could use some more people on their executive board. Why don't you talk to them? But I guess what I wanted people to know is that if you don't just know somebody who can tell you that, we're all looking for new members. And I think that's what is sometimes you feel like you need to have a set of experiences or a connection with somebody to make that jump from being just a member who attends things, which is also a very valid position to be in, but being an active member who's maybe on a board or doing something. And it really can be just as simple as expressing your interest to the executive board of that section, or just raising your hand. And I think that's the part that it does seem like Brandy said, sometimes it just seems intimidating when you see all these people, and a lot of them already have connections with each other. And that's the part that I didn't know how simple it was. So like, for example, right now, for more than a year, my section, my executive board has been looking for directors. And Brandy told me once that the director position is a good starter position for somebody who wants to get involved, because it doesn't require a whole lot of you, but it helps you get familiar with the way an executive board runs a section and what kind of things they have to do and what are the different roles. And you're a part of it, but you're not holding the weight of that on your shoulders. You're not the chair or the treasurer. You know, you don't have specified duties necessarily. It depends on the section. And we have 3 positions in Willer. I know other sections here are also looking for people to join on their executive boards. And you know, sometimes you just have to say you're the person who's interested, and that doesn't mean you know anything about it. You just have to kind of jump in with both feet. I do think attending the Leadership Institute helped me with that, because that kind of all happened at the same time for me. I looked up, and Dale was president-elect in 2012, and then I decided to go to the Leadership Institute in 2014, and that's where I met Wanda and kind of learned about the different ways that you could be involved. Rachel has put the link in the chat for you if you're interested. It really is a great experience. Not only are you immersed in the community of people the cohort you're with for those few days, but you learn a lot of different skills that just help you in your current position. But it also creates all these new connections that maybe you just wouldn't have thought of. And it kind of pushes you out of some of the things that you didn't realize you needed to get pushed out of. So it did encourage me to actually make that leap into doing my first poster session, which I did with Brandy, and then actually presenting some workshops and webinars after that. So, but that is one of the reasons really that I wanted to share, was I really felt like I was one of those people who just didn't even know where to start. And I guess that it's easier than it looks.
And those are great points, Michelle. And I think even showing up at a workshop, even like there's usually some networking there, and somebody from a section or a section should be leading that workshop. And so if you can't get to, or don't have the commitment level for Leadership Institute, sign up for a workshop, because they're starting to come back around more and more. So
absolutely. And even just meeting people at these events is enough to kind of help you feel a little more solidified in librarianship sometimes.
Right. So quickly, before we move on to our next question, Melody and Mark, would you like to add anything to this one?
Yeah, sure. I'm still pretty new to NCLA, but I joined in 2019 when I got my position at UNCG. So my supervisor at the time encouraged me to, apply to be the new professional liaison on the new member roundtable, which I did. And so I took that position, but then we immediately went into a pandemic. So I think that there was just a lot of priority shifts that happened, and rightly so. So there wasn't a whole lot that we were doing at that time. And now, you know, like fast forward, I am the vice chair of the new member roundtable. And that was just a call out that happened that I was like, I think I'm interested in this. And it really was as simple as that. There was a vote and it was easy, but I do think that that sort of transition from member to then being involved can feel a little scary, but sometimes it's just looking out for the right email and then putting yourself out there.
Mhm. And I would echo what Michelle said about joining a committee or a section as a director at large as an entry point, a very easy entry point. And that's what happened when I returned to North Carolina in 2005. I was a reference librarian and joined RAS, and was contacted by one of the executive board members who I had worked with in library school, who asked if I would be interested in serving as a director at large. And so that led to becoming involved in RAS. And then one of the great things about NCLA, I think, is that it offers something for folks in so many different areas of librarianship and also at different levels. And so as a reference librarian, I was involved in RAS, and then as I became a department head and later, I was able to move into leadership and management, and then LAMS became a very useful section to be involved in. And then currently, having been in NCLA for so many years, it's really helped to inform the work of the Constitution, Codes, and Handbook Revision Committee. So because you know kind of the process and the bylaws and so on. So there's a lot that the organization offers.
Then also, I'd like to add that NCLA executive board meetings are not closed meetings. And so if you're interested in hearing, you know, or just listening to how the meetings go, you should plan to attend one of those. That's one thing. The Leadership Institute, you do have to be, you have to apply. So for anything you have to apply to, you know, you could get in, you could not get in. But as long as you keep your membership dues current, most committees and roundtables are going to put their call out for members through the listserv. So as long as your membership is current, you're going to see where LAMS is looking for somebody or REMCO is looking for somebody. So those are two things I just like to say: keep your membership current. And then if you're really serious about getting involved, then demonstrate it by coming to a meeting or to going to the conference. And at most conferences, if Willer meets, they're probably going to have a business meeting prior to or after their featured speaker or whatever. So if you're there, you're sitting around the table, you're more than likely going to throw your hand up when they have a call for a volunteer, and they will have already gotten to know you by your attendance or at least facial recognition.
All right, thank you all so much. All right, so next question for the group, and we touched on this a little bit with some of your answers, but we're just going to dive in a little deeper on this. What do you see as the benefits of being involved in NCLA?
I tend to speak first, so I'm sorry. Let's get it out of the way. So the benefits, I'm gonna talk about two different types of benefits. One is social and support and network. So Mark is a buddy of mine, you know, we talk even though he's over at ECU. You know, Michelle's here in Wake County, but anyway, there's people I have all over the state that I've met and I never would have met them. And so that is just something so invaluable. people that may come and go from your section or group or committee, but you still maintain that relationship. I mean, so there's people in the western part of the state. There's people in, and it's just such a great opportunity to say, well, I might want to jump the fence. Let's say I want to move from public libraries to a community library, college library, or I want to just move to a different part of the state. It's a great opportunity to ask, like, I'm just going to be completely transparent here. Like, what's the pay like over there? What's the culture like there? And, you'll get the real deal, right? Because it needs to be a good fit on both sides, right? So it's just been an opportunity to say, explore, even though I'm very happy here in Wake County. When I was younger, and my life is pretty rooted here now, but I was exploring, looking at other places around the state of North Carolina, and I was able to talk to different people. So the relationships, to me, I'm a relationship person. It was very important. And I feel like these are friends. I mean, I might not see them all the time, but I know I can count on them. I can call them up. I can ask them for advice. So that's one big thing. Am I answering the question? It was what do you get at? What's the biggest thing you get out of it? The other thing is it can really affect your personal growth. I'll give you one example. When I was the membership chair, because I was young at that time, that was my first position. I did that for, I can't remember, 4 or 5 years. And one of the duties of the, at that time, was to present the awards at the conference. And I had to speak in front of 1,500 people. And I wanted to have a heart attack and just pass out when I did that. There was a lot of times when I had to push myself out of my comfort zone. And as a result, I went from, just being this terrified speaker who was just, a nervous wreck, to someone now, many years later, through putting myself out there and growing. I mean, I'm just in a much better place with that skill set. Now, Wake County offers opportunities, but not nearly at that level. And I'm not saying that would be everybody's experience, but certain, like presenting workshops and even doing things like this today, everything that you do that's outside your regular job is a way to just grow yourself and put yourself in places you never would have thought. So those are my 2 big things.
Well, I'll follow Brandy in that. First and foremost for me really is those personal relationships and connections. I think as an adult, it is harder to make new connections and relationships sometimes, because you stay within certain circles because of, the necessities of your day-to-day job and life. And it helps you expand that a lot. But I'd also like to add that, one of the things that I found really invaluable, especially during the pandemic, was the professional support. And I find that a lot from Willer. Most of us are managers. We were navigating something that none of us had experienced before, but we were all sharing similar problems and frustrations. And even since then, we are all kind of still working through a lot of new issues. And a lot of our executive board meetings start with just like a check-in. How are you doing? How are you addressing some of these things? And we bounce ideas off of each other, and we get support in ways that you don't always make time for in your day-to-day. And it really does help with that personal growth as well as professional growth. So I really do value that a lot. And I think you get a lot of that from being on some of these sections. You definitely get it in a smaller scale when you go to just different events and meet people and make those connections that you can reach out to. But it's you're meeting for longer, and you're creating deeper relationships with people by being on those sections. So I do appreciate that a lot.
I'll just add from like the new members roundtable, point of view. It's great. Just like what Brandy and Michelle said, it's really great for networking. It's really great. Like if you are new to it, that we want new people to join, especially if you're a LIS grad student, you're trying to get into the profession. So we host a lot of different events. We've been doing library meetups in different parts of the state. So we had one a couple weeks ago here in Greensboro at Bull City Cider Works, where some people showed up who were nearby or semi-local. There's going to be one this weekend at the Asheville Branch Library. So for Western Carolina, if you're interested in that, I think that's on Saturday. And there's information about that. Maybe Rachel can, yep, Rachel already plugged it into the chat. Thank you, Rachel. So yeah, so that's something that we're doing. It's just a really good opportunity to meet people and talk to people. And that's something that we have even opened up to people who are not NCLA members. I know that we sort of plugged it here in Greensboro a little bit to our LIS grad students as like, hey, you might not be an NCLA member, but maybe you want to come talk to some people who are, and if you're interested, we can tell you a little bit more about like what we do and what sort of things you can get out of it. So it was a really great opportunity, and we hope to do more of those types of things. So I think the social aspect is really important.
I think the networking and relationships are the greatest benefit of NCLA, without question. I would just add that specifically what they can do is just increase your professional expertise and your own knowledge. And they're particularly useful for, sort of informal peer comparisons or benchmarking and seeing how other, libraries are doing things that you're interested in, or how you can model something. And then finally, NCLA is great opportunity, and it's relatively easy to publish any scholarly research or a scholarship to share with folks, either in the form of an article in North Carolina libraries, or a poster session, or a workshop, or a panel like this. There's just so many opportunities that it's really easy to get involved, and it's very, I think, meaningful to folks that participate. So.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and take us to our last question, and then we're going to turn it over to some questions from the group. So there are many different ways to be involved with NCLA. What advice do you have for someone who wants to be more involved with NCLA, and where can they start?
So I kind of think I am. I just remind folks one more time about making sure your membership is current. Visiting executive board meetings, sitting in as a guest, or sitting in as a guest around some of the other sections and roundtable meetings, attending conferences, staying to the business meetings that they have, and just putting your name out there, that you are interested. And when you kind of put your name out there, eventually you'll get picked up. Or some people spend lots of time looking. And so it would be kind of cool if we created like a list or a place where we could throw our names in the hat and just say, if NCLA is looking for something, put your, someone in here, then here's a whole list of names of people who are eager to get involved and eager to get started. That might be something NCLA could look into as well.
I would say signing, gosh, there's so many ways. If you're looking for a really low-key way to get involved, I would say keep, once you're a member, as Wanda said, and if you're a student, it's very inexpensive. I mean, I hope I'm not speaking out of turn, but it used to be like $10 or $15 or something like that. I think going to a workshop, like an in-person workshop, would be a great, just easy start to, and then talking to the organizers. Hi, my name's Brandy, and I'm just curious. Can you tell me a little bit more? There is a volunteer form on the website. I'm going to be completely honest. Those volunteer forms get funneled to the library, or excuse me, to the chairs, And, you know, we are busy people. I've got 2 or 3 in the hopper right now, and I'm like, sorry. And you may don't, I guess one piece of advice is that know that we're human. So if you do send a message to somebody or fill out the volunteer form on the website or something like that, and you don't get a response, please try again, because like life can get crazy, and you could email, you know, there's always all the sections and committees have contact information on the website, so you can email the person directly and be like, hey, I submitted this, I didn't hear anything. We're not going to take offense to that. But I would say starting with the workshops would be a really easy way to just start talking to people. And then of course I'm going to plug the conference, because I am excited about this year's 2023's conference. It's going to be awesome. I got a sneak peek at some of the conference design materials, and I think it's going to be delightful. That to me is sort of like the ultimate way to, because every section, well, not, I mean, most sections in roundtables will have information tables set up, so you can walk up and talk to people and get yourself a piece of chocolate, put your name on a list, and we'll contact you. So I know that's a ways off. It's a whole year, you know, almost a year, you know, 11 months away, but never too early to plug the conference, because that's where I met probably the most different, you know, that's where I learned about Willer. I'm a member of Willer as well. You can join many groups. It's only $5 and you get per section, you get one for free. So very affordable. And but in the interim, or like you could just email one of the chairs if you're interested. Let's say you are interested in business librarianship or STEM or whatever, email the chair and be like, when is your next meeting? Because not all of our sections are going to have their meetings posted even on our events calendar, even though we probably should.
I think we've had some good ideas here. So, because that was the one thing I was thinking was I hadn't thought about the fact that we should be reminding people that they can come to our meetings and that post them more freely than just on our calendar. So maybe we should encourage the rest of the executive board to get those on the calendar and to make them a little bit more accessible to people. I definitely recommend every one of the sections has a web page with their board members listed. Like if you go to the Women in Libraries, you'll see both myself and Kate listed there, and our email addresses are on there. So you can just email and say, hey, I'm just interested in your section and what you do, or how I can get involved in it. That I think anybody would be receptive to it, because I can't tell you how much we all talk about wanting to get new members involved in the NCLA in a different way. And so I think that's where I was seeing the disconnect, was that we're talking about we want to get those people more involved and find ways for them to connect. And then on the other end, most of us came to it thinking, how do I get involved? So I just wanted anybody who was interested to know that it is just as simple as reaching out, because we'll look for a way to get you involved if you do. And I think Libby Stone was on here. If Libby's still on here, she's our current president, and I'm sure she would love to hear from you if you had an interest in NCLA.
Libby had to step away, but she did let me know, and we can certainly give anybody who's interested her info.
Okay, great.
Questions?
One of the things I would recommend too is to explore the website, nclaonline.org. And I put particularly the NCLA handbook, which I've linked directly to in the chat. Just spend a few minutes just kind of, perusing it and looking at the descriptions of the different sections and committees. I think it can give you a lot of information about what they do, what their role is, as well as the governance of the organization and what its mission is, and just the basic information. So I think that can be really helpful. And just reach out and contact the section chair or a colleague that's involved in an area that you would be interested in becoming more active in. The best way.
I'll
It's a
just
very-
add to that, you know, in addition to just reaching out to people and seeing how you can be involved, I think it would be really nice to get feedback too, if you're not seeing something that you would like to see, you know, some certain type of programming or workshop that you're not really seeing. I know Rachel and I would love to get, you know, some sort of feedback from LIS graduates on like what kind of workshops they might want to see to join NCLA and maybe join the new member roundtable too. That type of stuff would be very welcome.
Absolutely. I would love to have ideas from people about what they'd like to see. A lot of it just comes out of our conversations. So.
Mhm. All right, so at this point, we're going to go ahead and turn it over to some questions from the group. I believe Rachel's been collecting those in the Google Doc. And so Rachel, if you want to go ahead and share some of those questions, and we will see what we can get answered for y'all.
Awesome. So there were 2 questions about potential section ideas. And I'll drop the link to the doc one more time in the chat if anybody would like to add questions to this as we're talking. So I think the idea is how would you start a section of NCLA if that was something that you were interested in doing? Specifically, someone mentioned an LGBTQIA+ section, and someone else mentioned an outreach/communication section. And outreach communication, I might fall under marketing or advocacy, but the other, the LGBTQIA+ one sounds like a great idea to me.
I know that STEM had one. They're the last group that I think did that, right? Mark, do you
I
have
think
that info?
advocacy was the last one, right?
Yeah, I think STEM was the last one, if I'm
Oh.
not mistaken. So in the handbook, in the Constitution, it specifies that if you can get 100 people to organize an application and it's signed by 100 voted members, and it's approved by the executive board, that will create a new section. Sounds a little daunting, but I think it really, if there's interest, it shouldn't be too hard to collect that many.
Yeah, I have a colleague at UNC, our online learning librarian at UNCG started the distance learning section. And I remember when she was doing that, she just sort of sent around an interest form for members to sign. Another question, any advice for someone who applied to the Leadership Institute but did not get in?
I wasn't on the planning committee, so I don't know. Wanda, were you on the planning committee?
No, I was, but state the question again.
So they're saying, do you have any advice for someone who applied to the Leadership Institute but did not get in? And I will just say that I will be on the planning committee, but I'm not entirely I mean, my answer would be to apply again when applications roll around. What do you think, Wanda?
I think they should apply again. You know, it's limited to like, I don't know, is it 20? You think there is a
25,
limit to
something.
how many can come? And then they try to go by, you know, what stage, what point you are in your career. It is a leadership institute. So at one time, they wanted you to have, you know, somewhere like that 3 to 5 year experience. I'm not sure what the current guidelines are, but my advice is you never give up. So you keep right on applying, tweaking, and you want to send me your application, I'm happy to review it for you, to give you pointers around, you know, good ways to present yourself or better ways to present yourself. But I would just not give up. I would just keep applying, because you know that every year, this particular year, I think we had applicants from the class of 2020, the one that got canceled. And so then it might have been even harder because you still had to work with those people who got accepted back in 2020 as well. So just keep applying, and then remember, I'm happy to look over your application.
And there is some Leadership Institute programming that'll happen at the conference in 2023. So we could, you know, you can talk to some of those people then and ask them potentially. So another question we got was, how do you become a director at large? And I don't know if this means like a regional director for the association overall, or if this means a director at large in a section, but maybe both of those.
So for the regional director at large, which is one of the roles that I have now, you do have to be elected, so that you just throw your name in the pot and they elect you. Now for the directors for the individual roundtables, it's pretty much the same way. Every roundtable has an election, right?
Yes.
I'm pretty sure every roundtable has an election, so you would just throw your name in the hat and then hopefully get elected for it.
So yeah, what we usually do is, oh gosh, my brain is, I think we put a call out, right? You know, if anybody's interested in running, sometimes it's widely, you know, it's, I think every section probably might do it a little bit differently, but usually there's a call out if you're interested in running for an office. And I want to say most of the elections take place, is it July? Because we tend to start in the, like midsummer for the most part.
But for ALA, for NCAA regional directors, that election is normally in the spring, right? Isn't it in the spring? And you start with the July, right? July.
That's
Well, I know, yeah, I think for LAMS, like we start, like let's say for the next biennium, we start maybe in July, so that by October we can make, you know, we can meet and be at the conference. So maybe every board's a little different, but all the boards have their bylaws on their sites, or they should, and you can see when their elections are. But they're kind of, I think, yeah, I'm not sure about you know what, you're right, because they did start a little, I think they started earlier for the association ones than they do for the section ones, maybe.
But like you said, that, you know, everybody's does it at different times, but also some of us still have vacancies after having done that. So like last year in the summer, Willer put out that we had an interest for 3 directors, and we even specify what the positions were, put out a form, and had people self-nominate or be nominated. I had 2 people express interest. 1 dropped out before we even selected, and then another person said they were going to be on it and they were unable to continue with the commitment. So we still need 3 directors even after going through the nominations and the election. So and I know we're not the only section, because at the last executive board meeting, which was only like a week ago, there were other sections saying that they still have open director positions. So if you are interested in finding out if there are any, I know I'm going to be posting again, but you can, I'd be happy to have an email from you, and I can pass it on to Libby, who is our current president, who would probably know the vacancies in all of the sections.
Michelle, do you post it to the general listserv or to your membership? Because like LAMS, we have our
send it
own.
to everybody because our membership's kind of small compared to some other sections. And so I sent it out to the whole NCLA members.
Yeah.
listserv.
Yeah, we lost a program person, and I think I can't remember what I did, but I think I sent it to the listserv, and then I just started kind of talking to people I knew about it. But yeah, so Michelle, you need 3 directors. That's a lot of directors. Talk to Michelle. She needs help.
So the next question, I'm not 100% sure what they meant, so I sort of rephrased it. I think the question is what is an example of a position that no one wants to take? They suggested as an example, the treasurer, and that's funny because the treasurer of NCLA is here. I don't know 100% know what that means, but that's what it says.
Well,
I'm going to say secretary. I think it's hard to find people to run for secretary because it is it is a commitment that you have to deliver, and you have to deliver probably maybe even a little more than being treasurer. Treasurer is a huge commitment, but secretary is the one I think you oftentimes find difficulty in getting somebody to recruit to that.
There's also one that says, is there a list describing the position responsibilities? And I think, again, it's not clear which position they mean, so you might have to clarify that, but we can certainly tell you depending on what it is.
And I think a lot of them are defined in bylaws, or when you're sending it out, you're gonna put that description in there.
And there's another one, any section recommendations for someone who is new in library service and has no education in library service, but is interested in more schooling. I will do a cheap plug for NMRT as the chair, and Melody's our vice chairs here. We can definitely help you sort of get, you know, some connections in the library world. You know, if there's people that you want to talk to or specific questions that you have about, you know, we have connections with all the library schools. Yeah, the paraprofessionals section as well. I linked it in that Google Doc. Both of those would be great places to start, I think.
I'll give a plug for women in libraries too, because I think that applies to anybody who is a woman or works with a woman in libraries, which is pretty much everybody.
And I would say to the person, if you know there is a special interest, maybe you're just new, like you said, to the profession itself, and you're like, well, maybe I love children, so you know the youth services section might be something you're interested in because you're really, and you can explore that. And there's nothing wrong with joining multiple sections and jumping around. You know, sometimes I just want to join a section out of my personal interest. Like I'm a manager here. I don't work in the youth services, but I just went to the retreat and I was like, I want to join the youth services section because they have a lot of fun. And it was really cool because I'm a child at heart. So it could be just purely, I'm interested in kids, or I'm interested in literacy, or I'm interested in this topic. It may not be like your actual job, but that's okay too. It doesn't matter. I hope that was helpful.
And
Echoing with Brandy's point, I would definitely agree with that, because if you are kind of new to the profession and you may not be totally sure which way you want to take your journey in the field, joining a bunch of different sections and kind of hearing from people in those realms and learning a little bit more about each of those roles might help you decide kind of where you want to take that. And so that's a great way to kind of learn a lot about that without having to do a bunch of different jobs first.
that's a good tie-in. Probably the only other question we would have time for is how many sections can you join? I think there is no limit.
There's no limit.
Your first 2 years of NMRT are free. I will say that. All the other sections are $5 a year.
And I think when you join, you get one free section. Is that included? Is that in addition to new members?
Yeah, Laura says yes. Laura Luck. Mhm.
Oh, okay, cool.
No, that's all from the Google Doc.
I have 2 minutes. Does anybody want to unmute or say anything or have any last minute questions?
Oh wait, there was one more. I'm sorry, they just added it. Is there a listserv or email list where you can get updates from NCLA about events, section activities, etc.? Yes, if you join, you will automatically be added to the listserv. I think, yes.
Yeah, that's one of the perks, is that, you know, you get access to that.
And if you joined, not getting it. I
Oh,
thought
my.
I was muted. Joined and you're not getting it, you should let Rachel know. Is that right, Rachel?
Yeah, you totally can. And I can hook you up with the web committee, certainly.
Because I bet as regional director, occasionally somebody will say to me, I'm a member and I'm not getting anything. So yeah, occasionally your name might fall through the cracks. So speak up, speak out and say, I'm not getting what I need. Okay.
I mean, we're all volunteers. We do our best, but this is, you know, we all have full-time jobs or, you know, other commitments. So a little grace too would be wonderful, because we're doing this, you know, just out of the love of libraries.
Well, I wanted to thank everybody for coming today. I see some people are having to jump off to join to go cover service desks. We completely understand. And so just want to encourage everybody again to reach out and speak out if you need assistance. We are all really receptive and welcoming to new members, and we really want to hear from you. And I hope this was helpful to all of you. And I want to thank both Rachel and Brandy for helping me pull this together. And I hope that everybody who attended learned something from it. And I also want to thank all the panelists for being on with us today. So thank you, Wanda, Melody, and Mark as well for agreeing to be here.
Thanks for the idea, Michelle.
Yeah, happy to do it.
Great.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
All right, everybody have a great afternoon.